Hello, I'm Victoria, Editor of Student Accountant. Welcome to our Medal Winners question time, where we speak to the 3 medal winners from the December 2013 exam session. We're joined by Catherine, Rebecca and Melanie, who are the medal winners, and we're answering your questions. Okay, so the first question is from Samuel, a new student from Nigeria. He asks what he should be doing during the revision phase of his studies.
I would develop a revision plan, working out how much time you've got left until the exam and allocating each sort of night and weekend into times that you can fit in revision.
Yeah, I think mine was the same. It was develop a plan, stick to it. What I would do is I'd work out how many questions I'm going to do per day with the practicing, and that's really, really key in the revision period. I'd do probably maybe 8 or 9 questions a day. Take short breaks in between, sort of rest your mind, but practice. And then as you get closer, start sort of cramming and memorising information. But practice is the key because it helps you speed up on questions and it also reinforces what they're actually looking for in a question. Sometimes you might read the question and think that they're asking for something else, so it's getting used to what they're actually getting at with the questions, and always in the revision period and also in the actual exam, make sure that you relate back to the question as you're writing the answer, because sometimes you can sort of go off on a tangent and think, you know, I know lots about this, and start writing something which isn't relevant. So when you're doing the revision, you then have to refer back to the question, and sometimes you realise actually no, that's not what they were asking. So it's always figuring out what they want.
Yeah, I agree with both answers. It's definitely about making a plan. So from when you've finished up with your like the core studying, if you like, of the material, make a plan. I actually do print out like from the days from a calendar, so I know exactly how long I have. It's very clear, and I'd strike out each one then as I go. So you're like, right, 3 days left to go. And I'll plan in then what I'm going to do, and like that I would also really be practicing the questions. That's key to, like, at that point you want to be kind of, the material should be there, that you should know the material. It's a matter of then being able to portray then in the exam that you have the knowledge and you're able to answer the questions. I would make a plan as well, and I'd say, right, I'm going to answer say 8 questions a day, but then you might look and say, well, I'm going to do, the questions might take an hour, then by the time I look over them, so you need to be able to say, right, do I have time to do that? Because there's nothing worse than making a plan and thinking I'm going to do this, and then you physically can't maybe do it all, and then you panic. So you need to say, right, can I do all that in one day? Make sure that it's a plan that you're going to be able to keep with, because you don't want to panic and you don't want to start thinking you're behind. So you have to be realistic and say, right, I'll do this on Monday and this on Tuesday, and you should be on track then. And then you might realise, right, okay, I'm actually not too bad with this, I'll start looking at something else, and you can change the plan then if it's not going the way you'd expected it to. And I agree then with the questions, when you're practicing them, then keep the actual what the examiner is asking you in mind to make sure you're not going off track. Especially with theory papers, it's very easy to kind of get sidetracked and start going off on a total tangent. And you want to do all that when you're revision, because you want to say, right, okay, don't do that. Keep yourself on track. And like even then in the real exam, I'd stop once or twice and say, right, okay, yeah, no, I'm still doing what I'm meant to be doing. And then you might even realise, oh, I'm starting to kind of waffle a little bit now, bring it back in. Yeah. So you need to keep yourself in check when you're doing them. And practicing them then will make sure you do that on the day.
I think in the revision time as well, it's really important to practice them to the actual time you have in the exam, especially in the few days building up towards the exam. Yeah,
I would have, like, if I have, say, like, 6 days before the exam or 5 days before the exam, I'd allocate a couple of the mornings and I would nearly do a whole paper under the exam conditions. So I'd pick one of the past papers and I would say, right, okay, do this now under the exam conditions, like 15 minutes reading time. It gets you used to writing under those intense conditions as well, because the exam, it's like it's hard going on the day there as well, and it's intense, and it's the morning time too. So I would do it in the morning, because you need to get your kind of like yourself awake and alert and ready to go. So keep it as similar to what will actually happen on the day as you can. And then on the day, I kind of just said to myself when I'm going in, right, just pretend you're doing another one, like it's another day, you're just doing another mock. So it's not as daunting.
Naveen from Pakistan asks how you focus, if you're doing 2 exam papers in one session, how do you focus on each paper at the right time?
I would work out how much time you had available from when you start revision to when the exam is, and allocate a certain day to each exam, making sure it's balanced between the two and you've allocated enough time to each exam.
Yeah, no, I did the same. Now, I actually found when I did two, there's usually one where I might be a little bit better, or the material might have kind of made a bit more sense to me. So then nearer to the exam, then I might say, right, I need to put maybe an extra half a day or whatever it is to whichever one I'm feeling I'm struggling a little bit more with. But that's definitely at the end. That would be in the revision when you've kind of covered all the material and you're practicing the questions. And in your plan then you'd say, right, how much time needs to go to which one?
Yes, I did that as well.
What happens if you have, say, an exam on one day and the next day you have, I mean, is that hard to focus and unwind from one exam and then start up for the next one?
Yeah, I think again it's best to have a study plan sort of in place so that you know exactly what you're doing and you're spending equal amounts of time. And for me, I sort of planned to do one sort of a day after the other so that I wasn't focusing on one too much before the exam date. So sort of make sure that you equalise it out so that you don't panic again.
Yeah.
Key to not panicking. Navita from Guyana asks, what are your 3 top tips for exam preparation just before the exam? So saying like the couple of days before the exam, what would you think about?
I do, when I'm practicing the exam questions, so probably like the month beforehand or whatever it might be beforehand when I'm practicing the questions, I'll just practice the questions and be looking at the example solutions to kind of learn the material and make sure I'm on the right track. But in probably the few days before the exam, I'm doing them under the exam conditions. So I'll be timing myself. I'll nearly be like locking myself away, doing it exactly like the 15 minutes reading time and then the 3 hours, and making sure I'm not running over, because time management is so essential in the exam. So that's key for me, is practicing the questions but practicing them under exam conditions at home.
Yeah, I did the same with the allocating time to each question and making sure that you stuck to that. And because when you're in the exam, you do have to do it in those conditions, so it's worth practicing that beforehand.
Yeah, I think for me the last few days is important, sort of cram on definitions and formulas and things like that, things that you know that you have to remember in the exam. So you might think that you know something, but if somebody sort of asks you the question, you have to make sure that you can actually put it down on the paper and explain it well. So it's just cramming really, I think, for me in the last few days.
I read the technical articles on the ACCA website, so to make sure that I knew the current topics and what was going on for each paper.
Yeah, no, I agree with both of those. I used to write some of the formulas just on a piece of paper and have them stuck up on the board. So then, even if I wasn't looking at that